Hey guys, it's NeverSink, and today I want to give you an update on the Kinetic Fusilade rapid fire build I've been playing. Now the core of the build is the same. We charge up attacks, and by just holding right click we fire a whole bunch of them. I'm running out of mana so I can't fire continuously. And we need to stack enough less duration, otherwise the build will not fire. So we do less duration stacking by using a ring, an amulet, these reduced duration nodes there, and anointing hasty demise. Now, if you're playing this build, you'll notice the tree has changed quite a bit, and that's right. I've sold my Impossible Escape to buy another one, this one. And I'm going to cover what this is doing and why I'm doing it in a bit. Now, these ideas have been presented to me by several people in the same day on stream yesterday. So some other streamer probably discovered something similar. And I think the idea is pretty good. Now, there's two ways you can go about that. There's the version with the old Impossible Escape and the version with the new one. You can also just use none. That's also perfectly fair. I'm going to discuss your options in a bit. So the biggest change, and this is you want to do it on every build if you can afford it, no matter what version you play, you want a Thread of Hope. Thread of Hope allows you to allocate nodes in an area without actually traveling them directly in between these two circles. So we allocate Trickery, which is just a nice node. We allocate let's skip those. We allocate Force of Nature, which you usually would have to travel to with 3 nodes, and I know what you're going to say, but we want to the minus 15 chance to invert resistance, and we're going to get to that. And we also allocate multi-shot. So that by itself, if you just pick up this node and you don't need anything else, you can cut all of these nodes out here. So if you're using the Mage Bin Impossible Escape, this makes your tree way more efficient. You can save 8 nodes this way. It's amazing. It's really, really good. You can also allocate the node here with this, which is a void barrier, also amazing, right? So it is just great by itself. Yeah, definitely whatever you do, get this one. Now, we also picked up Elegant Hubris. Now, before we actually start talking about this, I want to give you a demonstration. One of the best stats for us is spell damage. And that's because that's not exactly true on this tree anymore, because we have all of the spell damage here. But before that, this little node has been one of the best damage nodes on the tree, because it grants 60% spell damage. The reason for that is simple. Kinetic Fusilade gets attack damage in the worth of 150% from your spell damage. So it grants you 24% damage. That means every bit of spell damage you get is kind of like 50% more effective than normal attack damage, right? So these spell damage nodes are pretty rare. And it's not quite common to get good spell damage node. There's one. But this one is 80%. And this one is 80%. And this one is 80%. And here we have friendly charge generation. And here we have crit multiplier, 40% of it. So yeah, I've been crunching some numbers, and as I said, by using Thread of Hope, we can save a lot of nodes. And I've been comparing how effective it would be to pick up a cluster jewel and use a couple of different versions there, and still very powerful, but this is better. This is better. I think Elegant Hubris is probably the better setup. So what we do is we pick up an Elegant Hubris here. Now you can get the proper one by doing this little trick. So you want to first select all the nodes you might want to have, right? Like you want to select these nodes, no matter what they mean. So you just select the nodes that you might want to replace or can replace in Radius. Then you click Find Timeless Jewel, set it to Elegant Hubris, set it to Filter Nodes, set it by Sort by Combined DPS. Click Generate. This creates these fallback nodes. You can also give them a certain amount of value. So you definitely want to give spell damage more value, but it does it by default. And then you can click Search. And it will generate good nodes for you in range. So you see this one guard has 3 times increased attack damage. I chose the other one, and I'll talk about it why. And 2 times spell damage. This has 2 times spell damage and multiplier and crit per damage. The spell damage and multiplier is the one I'm using. And you see this is spell damage and attack speed, so you can just pick one of them. And then if you want to search for them, you click search and copy trait URL. and you go to your browser, enter that, and you can find the jewels that you're looking for, right? So the one I'm using, I think 76,500, it is also here, right? So this is how you search for that. Right, but the key point is from this allocation, we get 240% spell damage, which translates into a 360% increased damage multiplier, which is just incredibly hard to beat, plus 40% crit multiplier. And it also has frenzy charge and hit. And since we can get frenzy charge and hit here, we can save on these nodes here, so we don't need it anymore. Now, we can't get the inversion of elemental resistance anymore on enemy hit. So instead, we do something else. Oh, and to allocate these nodes, we actually want this impossible escape, Wind Dancer. Now, you can just search for a jewel that doesn't pick those nodes up, but doesn't pick the nodes in the bottom up, and then you don't need this Wind Dancer impossible escape. By the way, this one is currently like 40 chaos, so grab it. And if you don't want all of the shenanigans with this bottom thing, then grab the old impossible escape and then grab these cluster jewels here. Right, so let's talk about Force of Nature again. So Force of Nature, 10% enemy elemental resistance, penetration, very good. But before we were using the inversion keystone. Mastery, right? So what we do now instead is I've picked up a dust ring. You can get a dust ring by selling a craftable dust ring by selling 5 mirror dust rings, and then you get one of these. This one I've made magic. I've slapped it with a Hunter Exalted Orb and gave it the curse enemies elemental weakness and hit. On top of that, I've crafted increased elemental damage with attacks. Now it'll take you a while to roll, but it's not that bad. Get like 500 or 600 alterations that you likely get it. And you might need to annul it so that you get the other mode free, but yeah, it's not the most costly investment. The most important, the more costly thing is buying the dust rings, selling them, and getting the Hunter Exalted Orb. So once you have that, why do you use a magic ring? Just a magic ring, right? That's because Viridi's Veil. With Viridi's Veil, we now have a ring in one slot. That means we are crit immune and damage hitting us is unlucky. That is such a huge boost to our defenses. Being crit immune is amazing in general. It's one of the most dangerous mods in the game. And on top of that, especially for characters with not huge EHP reserves, and on top of that, damage being unlucky is by itself, on average, 10 to 50% damage reduction. It's very, very good. Then we pick up Whispers of Doom so that we can run 2 curses. Now we have Assassin's Mark and we have Whispers of Doom. By the way, something I've noticed is that Assassin's Mark grants power charge when you hit an enemy that is marked. And we have 10% power charge on kill here and here. So we don't even need the power charge mastery, so we can replace it with the accuracy mastery. Much, much better. All right, with these, I think these are the major changes. I've also changed flasks a bit, changed the glove, changed the Eldritch implicits on the gloves, on the boots, that's an adjustment. I've gotten a perfect Eldritch implicit on my armor so that we also generate endurance charges. I think these were the main changes, but I want to talk about something else, and this is what Lolko and Nemrod discovered. Those guys are playing Kinetic Fusilade as well, and what they discovered is Kinetic Fusilade has a cap on attack speed. I'm going to link their video, I'm going to link Lolko's video and their calculations in there, but the key part is you don't want your build to exceed a certain amount of attack speed if you don't have enough duration. Otherwise, when you fire these projectiles, some of them will be held back. And that's why I replaced attack speed for a double damage craft on my wand. I think and one advantage that we have by passing here is that we now can pick up 10% less skill effect duration here. And this was actually enough to bring us to the next breakpoint. So yeah, that's more or less it about the skill tree. I think this is, yeah, I'm gonna post a POB of the tree in a sec. So let me show you some other things I want to talk about. Gems, I'm not sure about. Now, there's a lot of questions going on with Kinetic Fusilade because it's bugged with totems and with wisps. We can't see them firing, so it's very hard to evaluate how they work. Now, people talk that Sacred Wisps are not effective and not fire and don't hold projectiles correctly. I'm not sure about that, but for now, I advise you to potentially not use that. However, anytime I use it, it felt like the damage was so much higher than before, so I'm not sure. Then we have the tornado topic. Tornado is really, really good if you place it next to an enemy and shotgun the enemy, and that jumps between the enemy and tornado, and on top of the tornado deals damage afterwards. However, it's worse than it sounds. I've been trying it out a bit. It causes a nice burst of damage, which is cool. But we basically fill up the tornado 20 times within 0.25 seconds. And the cast speed of tornado is actually very high. So if you would socket it here, tornado would have a cast time. Right now, I don't have frenzy charges, don't have onslaught. Still, tornado would have a cast time of somewhere in 0.4 seconds. So I think unless you use a spell slinger setup or something like that, which is a bit hard to integrate in our build because we need all the reservation for the heralds, tornado is actually potentially not worth it. It may be a small amount of DPS increase. It does a lot of damage by itself, but the fact that you need to manually cast it somehow isn't great. So we need to find a way to automate that. I'm going to look into that in the future, but so much for that. Yeah, then what else? I've also exchanged the flask a bit. I've ditched the Vine of the Prophet because it would occasionally give us more attack speed, and more attack speed is not great about for us. Alright, so let me give you a demo map how this whole thing feels right now. This is absolutely nothing special. I'm gonna actually run my typical strategy there, just so that you see. This is a fairly juiced up map actually. While the map itself isn't complex, the Atlas is making it very, very dangerous because it has map effectiveness mods, it has extra projectiles. Definitely not the safest map, even the damage mods there, but it's also not very hard, right? Just a random arc, but this is also a ritual strat, so that is perfectly fine here. Oh, I actually didn't show the delirium. But yeah, this is the basic playstyle still. You hold right click, it fires, it auto hits, it shreds everything really fast. I'm gonna just pass to the boss. You see the clear is absurd. It's really, really great. So that is still the case. Alright, the breaches are still as amazing as they were before. So this is just really fun. Defense breach is also really good. I'm not gonna do another high fortress. We're just gonna pass to the boss to kind of give you a small sense of what it feels like. If he comes down at some point. Hello? Oh, there he is. Right, so things basically explode. Yeah, that's about it. At this point, this build can absolutely take on any pinnacle bosses, take on uber bosses. They don't phase instantly, but it takes just a couple of seconds to usually bring them to the next phase. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. This video is a bit lengthy, but I think it was important to talk about such things. Right, let the impossible escape prize shenanigans begin. See you next time. Bye.